Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Kelly Mescher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with Laura Wenman, Chief Mission Officer at MercyOne Central Iowa. She's here to tell us more about the MercyOne's merger with Trinity Health. We'll talk about this merger and much more, but before we get to today's interview, let's find out what's on the Bishop's mind.
Okay, Friday the 27th of May, what a jam-packed month. Obviously a lot of celebrations for people, First Holy Communions, confirmations galore. I've been all around the diocese in that way. And then, of course, the Baccalaureate Mass last week for St. Albert Catholic School, and then for Donnelly Catholic High School last night. So lots of chances to give the salutations and blessings to all our young people who achieved so much and now looking for that next phase of their lives also. So great grace there. We're rolling in. We know the Feast of the Ascension is transferred to this Sunday in our diocese and in our province of Iowa. I get to celebrate. We had Alex Kautsky on last week, two young people who met at Catholic Youth Camp, and then their courtship unfolded over the years, and eventually their paths at Loras College, and then the mission work and everything else. So on Sunday, I'll be officiating at the wedding of Ben Friedman of St. Luke's Parish and Maren Nielsen of Christ the King, and that'll be at Christ the King. So appreciate Father Nick Stark, who's walked with them and accompanied them also in their marriage preparation. So I guess when you're the bishop, you get to make some exceptions about when marriages can be celebrated and weddings in the diocese. And then, with COVID, obviously did not go out to Glendale Cemetery, but the Memorial Mass, obviously, for our veterans, and then remembering our priests and bishops on Monday, Memorial Day. And so hopefully Mother Nature will smile on us, and it'll be a beautiful occasion. And, of course, maybe a little memento mori for me, thinking about the place, God willing, where eventually my body will rest. And so, the custom of bishops being buried there. And so to remember my predecessors, and then, of course, one of the ones very much living, Bishop Sharon and Bishop Pates, and all their dynamism and as they continue to serve in their respective ways, too. So as we are conscious of those who've served with distinction for so long, we had a Mass at Holy Trinity Parish in Beaverdale, Des Moines, for many of the metro and beyond of our Catholic school staff and administrators a few weeks ago, and really giving a shout out to them. I know the Shelby County Catholic School and also St. Albert Catholic School will have their own separate celebrations, but we really want to pay tribute to those who have poured themselves out in really selfless ways and have adapted not just through the pandemic, but kind of the unfolding dynamism of our young people in different ways. And so the service awards really had to combine 2 different years, but we're mindful of Rebecca Cunningham at Dowling, Sean Benny at St. Albert, Janet Meisenheimer at St. Malachi School in Creston, Joan Erlbacher in Shelby County, 30 years of service. Mary Jo Keever last year, St. Pius X, much beloved, and her long career as service, and then Jay Flaws at Sacred Heart, also for 40 years. And then this year, again, acknowledging Deborah Murphy of St. Joseph Catholic School, Myra Sertich at St. Pius X, Denise Clark at St. Teresa, 35 years of service. Ken Schreiber, much well-known athletic director at St. Albert. He's been on our show a few months ago, and how we were able to honor him. And then 45 years, Mary Reardon at Holy Trinity, and Jonah Anderson at St. Albert. So blessings upon them. I hope great satisfaction, and I don't know how they tap in to find that energy and the intensity of a school day, and to do that, and also to be a mentor and source of inspiration to their younger colleagues. So the great blessing that they offer them in doing so. Hey, I'm going to haven't been to an Episcopal ordination in a while, so soon-to-be Bishop Earl Fernandez of the Diocese of Columbus, Ohio, and we'll go out to witness that. And so Columbus is kind of a place in my vocational path, as I spent 5 years there at the Pontifical College Josephinum. It was a great place where God formed me, and the connections and associations. I was a one-year wonder in pre-theology. Now, God's sense of humor, that I ended up spending 6 years of graduate school studying philosophy. But the Vatican has approved the new priestly formation document, and so men will ordinarily spend 3 years before they go off to major seminary with what's called the propedeutic or formative year, just kind of really developing their own love for Jesus and friendship and discipleship.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we return and welcome Laura Wenman.
Faith Check with Greg Yule on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. A trip to the doctor's office can be a scary thing, but it's often necessary to go there to get the healing and treatment that we need. Likewise, going to the confessional can be intimidating, but it's often the very thing that we need to get us back on the pathway to the Lord. While we should always privately repent of our sins to God, Jesus instituted the sacrament of reconciliation or penance for our own good. Statistics show that Catholic populations have historically had lower rates of suicide and depression than non-Catholics, and many psychologists attribute this directly to the healthy practice of vocally confessing one's sins. Few things can be as liberating as getting all of the junk from our lives out there on the table. The priest stands as Christ's representative, whose words of absolution, "I forgive you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit," act as a sweet healing balm upon our souls. Priests are not there to scold you, but to offer healing and a fresh start. So be not afraid. Come unload your burdens before the Lord in confession today. This is Greg Ewell for Faith Check.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. We are back with Laura Wenman, Chief Mission Officer at MercyOne Central Iowa. She's here to tell us more about the MercyOne's merger with Trinity Health and more.
So obviously the big footprint of MercyOne in the diocese and in the state of Iowa, the province that's there. But, I think, Laura, I appreciate you being on the show with us. And, you and your husband, Jim, I think made a vivid impression on me and my family when I came to Des Moines. And then, Bishop, you were kind of overseeing the hospitality suite and everything else. But
Absolutely.
you were so gracious to my family.
What a joy.
And you've not spoken publicly about anything that you witnessed as we hung out with each other.
No, it was wonderful. Sister Jude asked my husband and I if we would make sure that your family and the bishops that we're visiting were all welcome, and so we're just delighted to do that.
Yeah, so I think a charism of hospitality, and I think you've made me feel welcome at the times that we've had, such as the Mass that we celebrated with the MercyOne as part of Nursing Week and everything.
Correct.
That was a couple weeks ago, and let's see, Bob Ritz was there, but it's just not really post-pandemic. We're still being careful, and the staff was there, but I think it was just a great sense, and the chapel is not yet open, is it, at the downtown site?
It is not for public. We still celebrate Mass there for our internal audience, but the doors aren't open, and we look forward to the day when that will come.
Okay, all right, very good. And then, that Mass that we celebrated with the metropolitan area parochial school teachers, and your son James is now, he's first year at Holy Trinity, is that right?
That's correct. His first full year, he teaches fourth grade, and he loves every minute of it.
Oh, what a great blessing to have a male role model, not that the women, obviously, but, it's more exceptional, there. And he told me he signed a contract for next year as well.
He did, so he's ready to go.
And I don't know if it's moonlighting or not, what he helps out with at St. Francis of Assisi.
He does. It's kind of his side hustle, and he helps with the music and with their sound system.
Okay, so we'll get into some of the particulars of the merger, but just a little bit more on this, making it personal, how your own path led you to be involved in healthcare and really to be the champion of all things with Catholic identity and the mission that's there.
Well, actually, I've worked in healthcare my entire life, but I am not clinical. In fact, I'm pretty squeamish, so it seems kind of funny sometimes that's been my path. I worked at the University of Iowa for 15 years in their hospital, and then was recruited to come to Des Moines to work for Mercy. And I lived in Des Moines. I did a lot of work around the state, so kind of telecommuting before it was very popular. And Dave Valinga, who was the CEO of Mercy at that time, called and said, would you be interested in coming to visit with us? And I first started as their director of public relations and marketing. That was my initial role.
Oh, okay.
And then the woman who had this position, the vice president of mission prior to me, asked me if I would be interested in her succession planning in taking that role. Well, I was educated by Sisters of Mercy. My faith is very important to me, and so that was a wonderful opportunity. So I went back first and got my degree in hospital administration. And then
at Iowa? Or?
No, actually through the University of St. Francis. And then I had an opportunity to go back to school again and receive my second master's in bioethics and policy. So for me, it's been a great opportunity to meld things that I love. And it was especially important to me as the issues became more complicated in the ethics world to make sure that I had good footing in that subject matter.
Okay. Now, even as an undergraduate, learning the medical vocabulary. I mean, I think we have deduced that our paths interacted at the testing center at the College of Medicine at the University of Iowa.
That's correct.
So,
I loved
when I was
learning,
a med student.
Yeah, I loved learning about medicine. But again, a squeamish stomach and medicine don't mix. So I was I was a journalism major, so I wrote about medicine and had an internship at the university doing just that. So loved explaining in lay terms what was going on.
Okay. So as mission officer, the role is, I'm sure, very comprehensive, but a lot of that engaging with the clinical staff. And do you find that you have to kind of earn your street cred with them? Or
I have, and I've been in this role now about 15 years. So that certainly time and relationships make a big difference as you're speaking, especially when families and healthcare providers may disagree in what's the next path. And so credibility with them and having to establish credibility quickly with families is an important part of what I do as we talk about very difficult end-of-life decisions and how does their faith and their spirituality weave into those decisions is a critical part of that conversation.
So you really are, in effect, a part of the chaplaincy staff, too, the pastoral care staff, even though not wearing that title.
That's correct. I mean, we do recognize that these are long-term decisions and the impact of families making decisions or even patients themselves making decisions. If they carry that with them for the rest of their life, good or bad. So we want to make sure that we travel that path with them as best as we can when it's not our own loved one.
Mm-hmm. When people are considering employment with Mercy, and obviously there's an acute nursing crisis right now.
Certainly.
How is the Catholic identity related to them? How do they come to know about that?
Well, it's absolutely critical that be a good fit. And so in the interview process, we're talking with them about what it means to be part of a Catholic healthcare institution. And I don't focus exclusively on the things that people think about what we don't do. We really talk about the obligation, a positive obligation that we have to serve the vulnerable. And that's something that's pretty consistent with people who go into healthcare, I think. And vulnerable doesn't just mean poor. Vulnerability comes in a lot of forms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, do you ever find somebody who says, well, I don't think this is a good fit for me?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And that's okay. We want to be surrounded by people who may not have necessarily a strong personal commitment, but at least have a respect for what we stand for. We have only about 20% of our employee base is Catholic. Many of them come from...
Kind of reflecting the state.
That's
in a way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
From faith traditions, and some with a sense of spirituality, and some with none whatsoever, but they do have a sense of goodwill and what it is that we need to do. And we want to make sure that they understand that going into their employment so that we don't have concerns expressed down the road.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would seem as we walk the hallway, and I don't want to, stereotype, but it seems like you have Muslim staff and
Absolutely.
others.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, and we're blessed to have them because they bring their own unique sense to our organization. But we are unapologetically Catholic.
It warms your bishop's heart here. So MercyOne, and again, for some of us trying to figure out the geographic footprint and everything else, so the relationships and the kind of corporate alignments that are here. And this is kind of maybe, behind the veil and behind the curtain, but just to talk about the impact of this new merger with Trinity Health and Common Spirit. Right?
Certainly. So the MercyOne facilities in the state of Iowa have up until this point shared two parent organizations, both big Catholic systems in our country. And we now have the opportunity for the MercyOne assets that were owned by Common Spirit Health out of mostly in the West Coast. They have given these assets over to Trinity, which means that Des Moines, the MercyOne Central Iowa, Centerville, and Newton all have a new ownership structure. In reality, our patients...
Council Bluffs would be...
Council Bluffs will remain with the Omaha area. Mm-hmm. So for our patients, they will see little difference, if any. For us, it will just mean a new operating model. But we work with Trinity very closely, so it's not unfamiliar to us. We know they're people, they're good folks, and they have a strong commitment to the same things that all Catholic healthcare has a commitment to. So we're in good hands in that sense.
How long has that partnership been there? Is it over a decade or long?
Well, MercyOne has been in existence for 2 or 3 years, and but we've had a partnership with Trinity within Iowa for about 25 years.
Okay. So now when one actually sees MercyOne, whether one's in Iowa City or Mason City or Des Moines, ultimately it's the same family now.
Correct.
Whereas before it wasn't necessarily.
That's correct. We were siblings, but more like step siblings. That's it was a blended family before. Now we're united under one.
Okay. So, and, for me, as I'm being served in my role as the ordinary of the diocese, that I have to express this because ultimately the Vatican has to sign off on all of this,
That's
right?
correct.
Uniquely, the Congregation for the Clergy, which oversees assets and things on the material level. So as the total comes, and again, just to realize, when you put numbers on real estate and things, but we're talking about even for the Des Moines diocese, it's upwards of $500 million.
It is. People don't often think about that, but we're constantly trying to reinvest that money or provide charity care. It's not unusual for us to have people who require care and their bills are up over $1 million. So we have to be a strong organization to be able to do that. And as people have been reading or listening in the news, this is a challenging time for healthcare. So it makes it very important that we're strong, and fortunately we are.
I think the number I have heard is that the Catholic sponsored institutions account for about 15% of health care in the United States today.
And it can be even a little higher depending upon what estimates you read, between 15 and 20%. And many of them are located in inner city locations, and they provide care to people who have nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that nonprofit status, but the community is deriving so much more, and that kind of cohesion that might be part of this. Can you give some examples where patients and families will be better served by this?
Certainly. I think that it will give us an opportunity to be, in terms of our ministry model, it will allow us to be wise. Think about something as simple as purchasing. Now we're all purchasing together collectively. So the ability for us to purchase technology is important. But what I have found already is the partnership that exists among the colleagues across the state in sharing best practices, things that have worked, what we have found in terms of programming that has been especially beneficial. And one of the things that we're working hard on internally is the resilience for our staff who have been through a very traumatic time. And not that the rest of your listening audience has not, but we have really been up close and personal ourselves with the trauma of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I heard something last week that they don't anticipate that we will come through that trauma for 5 years. So trying to work with our staff and keep them motivated and connected to our mission is very important.
Have you had to ramp up the supportive services, mental health, and things
Absolutely.
like that?
Absolutely, not just for our own staff, but across the country. I think you'll see that, and eventually around the world. A great need, because people don't even recognize yet the impact that this has had on them. And for those people, it doesn't even have to be that you experience COVID yourself. It's just the isolation, for our elderly patients and elderly people in our community. That's been very significant. Just the change that we had to all endure has been very difficult on people. And those things are just starting to show now.
Mm-hmm. Have you lost staff who succumbed to COVID? Were there any?
Fortunately, on our team, we have not lost anybody who passed away from COVID, which is truly God's grace, considering how often we were front and center before vaccines. And, I remember very vividly those, first couple weeks where people were coming in day after day, not knowing what they were being exposed to, not knowing what they were bringing home to their families. And that's the kind of experience that they've had that they're now working through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you notice any distinction of people who maybe have kind of resources of faith, spiritual resources of faith? Do you think, I mean, they're not going to be spared the trauma and things
Correct.
of this, but do you notice any of that, or can you sense that when,
well, it is anecdotal.
The horizon of heaven and things,
right.
that there is a life beyond this one?
Certainly. It is anecdotal, but in those first month or so, it was very important that we meet people's basic needs, right? Food, some of those kinds of things. So there'd be these treat carts that would be going through. But about 2 months into it, I started to have on the cart, instead of food, holy cards, rosaries, reflection books, journals, and those things went just as fast. So I would say yes. People of all faith traditions looked to those. I had St. Roche medals, who's the patron saint of infectious disease, and people were, taking those. And even people who might not have recognized what they were, they would ask, what is this about? And it gave me an opportunity to explain a little bit about our Catholic tradition. And they were, can I have one? Can I have one for my mother? Can I have one for my kids? So it was an interesting evolution for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, St. Peter, and giving account for the hope that is in you without, kind of imposing yourself on a captive audience in that way. But no, and I appreciate also how, readily you allowed clergy to be prepared, with the protective equipment to offer the sacraments and anointing and to be present, I think, in a way that was much more ahead of the curve with some of our other institutions. So, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue to visit with Laura Wenman. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the Worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahs strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop, priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarahs, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Hello, this is Steve Raid, inviting you to join me along with Matt Wilcom and Father P.J. McManus for the Iowa Catholic Radio's 15th anniversary pilgrimage to the Holy Land, November 11th through the 20th, 2023. We'll have Mass and dinner on the shores of the Sea of Galilee and visit the upper room where Jesus instituted the Holy Eucharist. Plus, my wife Janet and I will be offering invigorating teaching along the way. Not all pilgrimages are created equal. Brochures and details available at iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome back. We are back with Laura Wenman, Chief Mission Officer at MercyOne Central Iowa.
So, Laura, you and I have had more than one conversation about, just the practices, wanting to be in accord with our Catholic values and the ethical and religious directives, which has been in existence for more than 30 years and continues
1917.
to be.
Since that time.
Yeah, so the dynamic document, and you think about that, almost, ahead of the 1918 flu pandemic in a way, and now here we're coming out of something. So I think as bishops, we're aware that it's probably time to take account of some of the unfolding things in medicine and in our society that have concerned us. And, we think about the great movement toward palliative care and, trying to alleviate pain and to bring that. Right. Is that a robust service in the MercyOne system?
It is. We have both inpatient and outpatient palliative care services, and that, for people who may not be familiar with that term, are for people who have chronic or potentially terminal illnesses, and it allows them to make some decisions about what they want their remaining life to look like, how aggressive they want to be, and how we might be able to modify or manage symptoms rather than going full forward with cure, which may diminish their quality of life. So we really try and, again, it's really important that we walk that journey with people as best we can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, that our focus is not on what's the quality of this life, but focusing on the medical interventions and the benefits that they might offer or the burdens that they impose.
That's correct. And quality of life is kind of a slippery term. I typically would not use that because it's so different for all people, but it does allow them to say, if, for example, somebody who has cancer, I am not going to take chemotherapy because the outcomes of that may not be beneficial to me, and I want the time that I have left, I want to be able to visit with my family and to still have an active relationship with their God. And so, we've walked that with a lot of people, and it's important that we're open to what they have to say. But it's not, I don't want to be sick. That's not an option. Sometimes that is what we have. And so, and we don't make that choice.
Mm-hmm. And I know at the Mass I made reference to a guest we've had on the show here in recent months, Dr. Lydia Dugdale, and her reflection on the art of dying and things. And but she, in her clinical practice, connected with Columbia University in New York, notes that sometimes you have this paradoxical where people of faith suddenly become more tenacious in pursuing every means. They believe God is going to give them a miracle. And of course, we never rule that out in that way, but that they almost are, medical consumers to a different magnitude sometimes than people who maybe don't have the religious faith. Sometimes
the miracle is a peaceful death. And I stress that with families frequently and patients who are frightened. It's really trying to address that worry and concern.
Mm-hmm. And the great gift that we give each other in having those conversations of sharing our soul and our dispositions, which may not be set in stone, but what are our preferences? And so there are documents that obviously Mercy is hoping people will prepare in advance.
Correct. I really encourage people to make their wishes known to their family members before there is an emergency. And then that way your loved ones are simply executing what you've already asked for and not having to make decisions that they may be unsure of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good reminder for us all, certainly among clergy. We can constantly ask them to update their things and to have that ready. So we're still going to see the green and white signs of MercyOne, that the branding is going to be the same?
Absolutely. That will all remain the same. And it certainly has been a unifying look for us. But it really, we hope that it represents the fact that we are one in caring for our communities that we serve in, and especially, those who we're really privileged to serve.
And to form the next generation of healthcare providers, the alignment with the Mercy College of Health Sciences and all that's present in that way.
Absolutely.
So may the Holy Spirit continue to anoint your work. Happy Feast of the Ascension, and may God take the MercyOne system to the next level.
Thank you, Bishop.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.